Hey, what's going on, guys? Realm Gaming here, back another video. Today's episode, we're going over the Mistweaver monk, and the whole point of this guide is, I don't want to make an information overload guide. I feel like I've kind of done that in the past. It's just too much. So this is going to be a beginner's guide. It's just going to go over the basics. We're not going to get lost in the sauce and talents or anything like that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the guide. So first pro of Mistweaver Monk is its melee focus. So the reason this is a pro is because there's going to be certain mechanics that don't target you, especially in like Mythic Plus. It's going to target the range DPS. So this is a good thing because this is going to give you more uptime on healing and more uptime on damage. But this can also be a con too, right? Because you have to be a little bit more on your feet. You have to be a little bit more aware of frontals and things to not stand in, like Sanguine, right? So depending on how you look at this, this could be kind of a pro or a con. Up next, we have very versatile healing cooldowns for many different situations, which is really neat. I feel like the single target healing on Mistweaver Monk is insane compared to something like my Restoration Shaman. And I also feel like their burst AoE healing is on pretty low cooldowns for the most part. So you're able to go through a fight and just kind of juggle the same 2 or 3 abilities back and forth if you can kind of map them out ahead of time. So that's one of the things I really like about this class is there's not a whole bunch of crazy buttons you got to press. You got 3 or 4 major AoE healing cooldowns. Outside of that, you just kind of follow your normal damage rotation and your normal healing rotation. Another big pro here is high mobility. We have Tiger's Lust. We can get 2 rolls that are on a pretty short cooldown, so that's always really good to have. Another big pro of Mistweaver Monk is we have great defensives, right? We have Life Cocoon, we have a large magic absorb effect, we have just a flat damage reduction effect. We get a lot of passive healing from our damage abilities, so in general, we're just a pretty tanky healer. Another thing here is we have a really quick damage profile, so it's very easy to get damage in. For example, on my Restoration Shaman, it can be difficult to find 1 or 2 seconds to get a lightning bolt off, to hard cast a chain lightning, to hard cast a lava burst. Not only for the time, but you're also stationary during that time, so ground effects can really kill you, right? You get a couple seconds there where you're very vulnerable. On something like Mistweaver Monk, you're able to easily roll out damage while moving. It's quick, and it's just a very versatile spec. Some of the cons here, there's not too many. I think Mistweaver Monk is very meta right now, so you're not going to have a ton of cons, but there are some things that you need to be aware of. It's very mana hungry when you spam single target healing, such as Soothing Mist into Enveloping Mist and Vivify spam. That is very mana hungry. So just something to watch out for. I had this as, must play some fights perfectly. But I think what I really meant to say is it requires more planning than some other healers that I've played previously. Like, again, I just go back to Restoration Shaman. That's what I played a lot of this season. You don't have as many tools as a Restoration Shaman has. You don't have as many major big button, save the whole group abilities that you can press. So if you don't manage your cooldowns in an effective way up front, it can really hurt you in the long run. So that'll probably make more sense as we get a little further into the guide. But for now, just know that you, especially at the top end of like Mythic Plus, once you start getting above 20s, you have to use your cooldowns at a very specific time in a very specific order, and you have to know you have to have some sort of a plan before you go into the fight. And I've noticed with Mistweaver Monk more than others that you have to have a more detailed plan kind of lined out before you go into the fight. And that brings me into my final point here, high learning curve. It's just not a traditional healing class, right? You don't see a low health bar, you press the heal button and the health goes up. It's based on your damaging rotation and knowing which damaging ability to press instead of which healing ability to press. So it's just kind of a different mindset, I guess. You have to be kind of comfortable with your rotation, and you have to be confident in the fact that your damage will be able to carry you and your groups healing throughput instead of your healing during your healing throughput, right? So it's just kind of a different mindset. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into basic gameplay. So starting out here, just for basic gameplay, what we're going to be looking at with Mistweaver Monk is we're going to be looking to apply Renewing Mist to as many targets as possible. This is going to be our heal over time effect. And this is going to, we have a lot of general talents and abilities that synergize with Renewing Mist, right? So this is something that we're going to spread out throughout our group, and we're going to try to keep at least one stack on each party member if you are in like a 5-man group, like a Mythic Plus group. So we'll go over that a little bit more later in the video, but for now, that's what Renewing Mist is. This is also going to buff your Vivify on any other targets that have Renewing Mist on them. That's going to be another core healing ability that we'll cover later. We're also going to be trying to keep the Ancient Teachings buff up. So if you see the right-hand side of the screen, after casting Essence Font or Feline Stomp, your Tiger Palm, Blackout Kick, and Rising Sun Kick heal up to 5 injured allies within 40 yards. So basically, this is how Mistweaver monks are able to heal and do damage at the same time. So Ancient Teachings will drop. It should last 12 to 15 seconds, and then once that falls off, you're going to have to reapply it. Highly recommend getting some sort of a weak aura to track this, but just know that is something that you're going to have to track when playing Mistweaver Monk. Another core component of Mistweaver Monk is Rising Mist and how it synergizes with your Rising Sun Kick. So this is going to be a way that we can do damage to the enemies and spread out some of our healing through Rising Mist. And then of course we have Mystic Touch here at the bottom. Your damage weakens a target, increasing physical damage taken by 5%. So this is a really big reason to bring Mistweaver Monk here, is because it just amps the damage of the rest of your group. We have a really, really good damage profile. Next here we have stat priority. We're going to want to focus mainly on haste, and that's going to be due to, we're healing through our damaging abilities, so we're going to be casting as many damaging abilities as we possibly can throughout a rotation to get those hots out, to spread our heal effects out to as many people as we possibly can. So haste is going to be your number 1. Crit's going to come in at number 2, and this will be followed by versatility and then finally mastery. All right, then for talents here on the left-hand side is going to be the Mythic Plus build, which focuses a little bit more around Jadefire Stomp. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, these are going to be the raid talents. I will have links to both of these in the description of the video, so feel free to check those out. All right, now going into our tier set bonus. Our 2-set bonus here is Mistweaver Monk's Renewing Mist applies Chi Harmony to its initial target, increasing their healing taken from you by 50% for 8 seconds. So this is one of the reasons why Renewing Mist is so strong to spread out between all your targets, is due to this 2-set bonus. Then the 4-set bonus just kind of synergizes with the 2-set bonus. So if you remember, from the 2-set, we apply Chi Harmony to its initial target. So on the 4-set, we're going to take 20% of all healing that's done to that target through Chi Harmony, and that's going to be dispersed evenly among all your allies whenever that fades. So basically, any of the targets that we're Renewing Mist, all the healing that's done to them during that time of Chi Harmony on them is then going to be dispersed to our group. All right, so for baseline abilities, this is in no sort of like particular order. Probably Renewing Mist, Spinning Crane Kick are going to be some of the core ones here, but those are at the bottom of the list. I'm going to start at the top. We're going to start with Soothing Mist here. This is going to be one of your main single target heals. This is like a channeled ability. And while channeling, this will make your Enveloping Mist and Vivify become instant casts on the target. So remember that for later in the video, but for now, we'll just leave it at that. And next, we have Rising Sun Kick. So kick upwards, dealing X amount of physical damage. This is going to apply Renewing Mist for 6 seconds to an ally. And this is also going to synergize with that Teachings of the Ancient Monastery buff that we were talking about earlier. So the damage that we do with Rising Sun Kick is going to heal our allies if Teachings of the Ancient Monastery buff is up. So again, that's something you want to keep up at all times. And next we have Tiger Palm Kick. So strike with the palm of your hand, dealing 27% of attack power as physical damage. So this is going to be really good because you can utilize Tiger Palm before your Blackout Kicks to make a Blackout Kick go off multiple times. There is a talent in our talent tree that handles this, but just know In most builds, we do run that talent. So you'll want to pair a few Tiger Palms before you Blackout Kick so you can get all that extra healing and damage from the Blackout Kick. So Vivify here is just going to be like our basic heal for Mistweaver Monk. If you're familiar with like Paladin or Priest, the Flash of Light is just our most basic healing ability. It has a cast time, it does a heal. So the cool thing about this is whenever we heal a target with Vivify, if you have other targets around them that have Renewing Mist on them, it's going to take some of that healing and spread it out for effective AoE healing on your group. Up next, we have Enveloping Mist. So wraps a target in Healing Mist, healing for X amount of spell power over 6 seconds. So it puts a strong dot, a healing, or a hot, I guess, not a dot. And this is going to increase the healing received from your other spells by 30%. So this is an instant cast during Soothing Mist. So I have a combo later at the end of the video that we can utilize for this for really strong single target healing. Next we have Spinning Crane Kick. Spin while kicking in the air, dealing X amount of attack power as physical damage over 1.5 seconds to all enemies within 8 yards. So this will also synergize with teachings of the Ancient Monastery buff. And what you can do is, just during a small typical trash pack is you can just get that ancient teaching of the monastery buff up and just spinning crane kick, and it's for the most part going to keep your group topped off. So very fun ability. I think that this is one of the iconic abilities of Mistweaver Monk that makes him so fun to play, at least for me. Then of course at the bottom here, this probably should have been at the top of this list because we have so many things that synergize with Renewing Mist, but surrounds a target with Healing Mist, restoring X amount of health over 20 seconds. So this is going to be our heal over time effect. Some notable abilities here. We have Life Cocoon, which is basically just a big absorbed shield that we put on a target. So if you have a target that's about to die, you can just throw this on them and it'll most of the time, save their life and keep them from dying. It says 2-minute recharge, but it can actually get lower with talents. I think it's something like 1.5 minutes if you take some talents to reduce that. We also have Revival to the right of this. This is going to be sort of like a burst AoE healing that you can use. It's on a pretty long cooldown, but it has a fair amount of healing. You can see at the bottom, the healing is increased by 100% when not in a raid. We also have Sheelin's Gift here on the very right-hand side of the screen. So draws in nearby clouds of mist, healing the friendly target and 2 nearby allies for X amount of spell power per cloud absorbed. So this is going to be really, really strong for any sort of burst AoE healing. This charges up pretty quick, which is nice. So you can get, between 5 to 6 stacks, within, it says every 8 seconds you get a stack, right? So 40 seconds in combat, you can get 5 stacks. And for the most part, that's going to top off your group. So what I like to do is I like to use this sort of as my core burst AoE healing ability. So whenever a boss does like a huge AoE damage phase, I'm going to have this with 5 or 6 stacks ready to go. I'm going to pop it. It's going to take my group from like 40% health all the way up to 100%. Every single one of them except for probably the tank, just because they're so beefy. Up next, we have Chi-Chi the Red Crane and then Yu'lon the Jade Serpent. It's going to make you pick between one or the other. So I take Chi-Chi's Red Crane in Mythic Plus, and then in raiding you can take the Jade Serpent, but completely up to you. It depends on your play style. I've seen both in Mythic Plus, I've seen both in raids. So, just follow a build guide, whichever one that feels the best to you. Pick that one and roll with it. So Chi-Chi is basically going to be buffing your Blackout Kick, your Rising Sun Kick, and Spinning Crane Kick. And it's going to heal allies for spell power. So it's really good in Mythic Plus, right? Because you're doing so much damage. It's even good in raid as well, right? You're doing all your, your normal damage rotation. You can pop this. It's going to do a whole bunch of just kind of passive healing for you. Then you can see at the bottom, it's going to reduce the cast time of your next Enveloping Mist by 33%. And this is going to stack. And then Invoke Yu'lon the Jade Serpent here is more of just like a passive button. You just kind of press it and it does raw healing of your group over 4.5 seconds. And this also buffs your Enveloping Mist, where it costs 50% less mana. The bottom left here, we have a Jade Fire Stomp. This is a really fun ability to play around, especially in Mythic Plus, because this has a chance to reset itself whenever you are fighting within the stomp. So when you throw it out, it's going to put some sort of green ground effect on the ground, and you have a 66% chance when fighting within it to reset your Jadefire Stomp cooldown. So you can actually kind of chain this up. Sometimes you can get really lucky, sometimes you can get really unlucky, but you can utilize this when it resets to keep your Teaching of the Ancient Monastery buff up. Now, if you ever find yourself in a weird situation where this is on cooldown and you lost your Teaching of the Ancient Monastery buff, you can always fall back on something like Essence Font. Essence Font will invoke that buff. At the bottom here, we have Mana Tea, and this is going to be sort of a stacking buff that you have to track. It'll cap out at 20%, but each stack you get is going to give you, let's see, 3,000 mana per stack. So it's a channeled ability. It's very easy to use. You kind of want to find some sort of downtime in the fight, but as you do damage, as you're in combat, you're going to passively gain these Mana Tea stacks, which you can then drink the Mana Tea, and it's going to restore a ton of mana at 20 stacks. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's something like 30% of your total mana, 30 to 40%. So just make sure you're never capping this out at 20 stacks because that's just wasted mana. Then on the right hand side, we have Thunder Focus Tea. For the most part, it's going to look kind of confusing here, right? Because Thunder Focus Tea has all these different things it can buff. But for the most part, since Haste is our best secondary stat, you're going to want to be utilizing this with Essence Font. So you can see Thunder Focus Tea, Essence Font channels 100% faster. But if you look to the right, we have Secret Infusion. So when you use Essence Font with Thunder Focus Tea, you're also going to get a stat buff. So you're going to get Haste. So it's very important. At least 99% of the time, you're probably going to be using this with Essence Font. All right, so your general priority and rotation here, of course, you're going to keep Mystic Touch up on all your enemies. They're going to take increased 5% damage from you. So that's very important. You also want to keep Renewing Mist up on all your targets. Renewing Mist synergizes with our kit in so many different ways. So you just always want to have, if you can, try to keep 5 Renewing Mist up on all targets at all times. But you never want to cap this out at 2 stacks. You always want this thing to be recharging. We also want to use a Rising Sun Kick. That's going to do 2 things. It's going to spread more Renewing Mist, and it's also going to extend the duration on existing Renewing Mist. Then, like we just said, we don't want to let Mana Tea cap at 20 stacks, so we want to be staying on top of that as much as we can. We will also be utilizing Thunder Focus Tea into an Essence Font so that we can get that haste buff. We also want to focus on keeping the Teachings of Ancient Monastery buff up with both a Jadefire Stomp and Essence Font. So again, I highly recommend to find a weak area to track this. Just keep some sort of icon on your screen so you can see when it's active and when it's not active. Then at the bottom here for Soothing Mist, you can really utilize Soothing Mist with Enveloping Mist and Vivify for really big single target heals. Because remember, while Soothing Mist is casting, you can cast Enveloping Mist as an instant cast as well as Vivify. Now this is very, very mana hungry, so it's not something you want to do all the time, but it can really save you in those big pinches. Then for AoE healing, typically Spinning Crane Kick, bam, is going to be fine, right? Throw down your Jadefire, you'll get the Ancient Monastery buff up, and then you just spam Spinning Crane Kick. It's going to keep your group topped off most of the time. Once you get decently geared, you should be able to get 100k HPS on your group just from this one button, which is pretty nuts. Then of course, going back to this, for those crazy situations, right, you have Red Crane here, you've got Revival, and you have Shilun's Gift here to kind of get you out of those big AoE burst phases, because Spinning Crane Kick is not going to be enough to just get you out of every single situation. Alright guys, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel, and we will see you all in the next one.
Thank you.